Hey everybody, welcome to Mighty Modern. I'm Corbin and this is Dubious Emrakul's. I've finally taken the Dubious Challenge. I've put it off for a while, but ever since this card came out, it's been on the list. I've been doing it. So if you're watching this, I'm just getting back from GP Vegas. I hopefully had a great time there. I'm obviously recording before I leave. But this felt like a good deck to have coming off of that event. I'm sure in the coming weeks there'll be decks from the event I'll be picking up, but I wanted to check this one off the list while I could because I'm looking forward to playing this. This looks like a lot of fun. So Dubious Challenge, for those who don't know. When you take the Dubious Challenge for 4 mana sorcery, you look at the top 10 cards of your library. Exile up to 2 creature cards from among them. Then shuffle. Your opponent gets to choose one and get to put it into play, and then you get to put the other one into play. And that's the card. So how does it work? It's weird. How do you make this work? Your opponent gets the best creature. So I guess the idea is in Commander, it's fine because you're still getting a good creature. But it turns out we can actually just kind of break it in Modern with Emrakul and with blink effects like Flicker Wisp. So when Flicker Wisp enters the battlefield, exile target permanent. We're going to exile our Emrakul. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, being in the next end step. So, if we Dubious Challenge on our turn, we put Emrakul into play on their side. Obviously, they'll take that. We'll take the Flicker Wisp, and we will get Emrakul and Flicker Wisp at the end of the turn, which of course means they'll probably take the Flicker Wisp. Now, the downside of this is if you hit Emrakul and no Flicker Wisp, they just get Emrakul, you're in trouble, which is why we have Glimmerpoint Stag in the deck to give you 8 copies of it. This is basically the same effect. It's also 3/3 Vigilance for 4. So that's sort of the deck. That's the idea, right? And that's how Dubious Challenge has been. So shout out to Zach Elsick for coming up with this innovation. But he included Devoted Druid, Vizier of Remedies in the deck. Now, this is sweet. This, of course, this combo's all over the place. It's very, very good, very ubiquitous in Modern. And instead of the win condition in other decks where you have Deskwatch Recruiter and you go get Ronus or Walking Ballista, this deck just says we're going to cast Emrakul's. And that's why we actually have Emrakul the Promised End making its Mining Modern debut here. Adds something pretty good to do with 13 mana, and worst case scenario, you get it off the Dubious Challenge. It's a 13/13 Flying Trample, protection from instants. Could be a lot worse. Or I guess they're could be a game where they get big Emrakul and you get small Emrakul, right? That would be funny. But you look at top 10 cards of your decks, they actually get a lot of cards. But obviously the big problem with this deck is drawing your Emrakuls and not hitting them off Dubious Challenge. And that's where Vizier of Remedies Devoted Druid combo comes in. Of course, this makes infinite mana because Devoted Druid taps for mana. Vizier of Remedies prevents -1 counters from being put on your creatures. It prevents one of the -1 counters. So Devoted Druid, you can put a -1 counter on it to untap it. Of course, with Vizier, it prevents it. Tap, untap, make infinite mana, etc. Use that to cast your Emrakuls, both of which have nice cast effects. Now, assuming none of that works, you have Through the Breach as yet another backup plan, and we can actually kind of ramp into it because we have 2 ramp spells plus Simian Spirit Guide. So we can actually pull off a lot of turn 4 Through the Breaches for sure, turn 3 Through the Breach as well, which can put Emrakul into play and kill them. Now, there's no Annihilator on the Promised End, but it's still a lot of damage, so it's still a thing. Woodfall Promise is the other card in here that Zach Elsick had. This could be a lot of different things, to be honest, but I kind of like the idea of Woodfall Primus being in here. You need to blow up their lands. Also, it has Persist, so if it dies, it comes back into play under your control, rather than their control, if somehow they get it. So it's just sort of a reasonable card, especially in a game where maybe you Dubious Challenge early. And maybe they get you miss Emrakuls, they get Woodfall Promise. They'll blow up one of your lands, surely. But you can flicker it back and blow up one of their lands. And considering then that you have all the creatures, that works out pretty well for you, that exchange. So moving on to the sideboard, sort of generic cards when you're in Naya colors here. Rest in Peace for the graveyard decks, Leyline for the discard decks, Stony Silence for the artifact decks, Blood Moons for the Blood Moon decks. Really a lot of Modern boils down, it turns out, to generic sideboard cards that are good against generic decks, and that's what these 4 cards represent. Also, Hornet Queen, though, this is the spice. This is pretty good if you're against Affinity or Merfolk or Zoo, some sort of deck with a bunch of creatures. You can actually, this will leave behind 4 Death Touch insects. So that's the deck. It's a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to taking the Dubious Challenge for a while. And when I saw this version of the deck that Zach Elsick had innovated, I could not pass it up. So here we go. Thank you for watching. Let's play some Emrakuls. Dubious Challenge time.